Hi, my name is Kyle Clare and I'm with Serve Wisconsin. We are the Wisconsin National Community Service Board. We work the AmeriCorps programs at the state and we strive to promote national service and volunteerism throughout Wisconsin. We are so very pleased to be sponsoring the Governor Service Awards again this year, and we are interviewing all of this year's honorees. And today we're talking with Amelia Ford from the Racine to AmeriCorps program, who's being honored as AmeriCorps Member of the Year. So how are you doing today, Amelia? And congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm doing really good.
We're so happy to have a chance to talk with you today.
Thanks. I'm really glad to be able to talk with you guys too.
Amelia, could you start off by telling us a little bit about your AmeriCorps service this year with the Racine to AmeriCorps program?
Okay, so through AmeriCorps, the Racine Zoo has been providing high-quality conservation-based education programming to different districts of public schools in Racine County. We developed 5 different educational programs for different age groups between K and 9th grade. The first one being the classification cadets for our kindergartners, and we dived into differences between animals through hands-on games, crafts, and other live animal presentations for the young kids. And then in the 3rd grade classes, we were teaching about different animal adaptations through animal presentations, and then they also were able to create their own diorama. Our beginning birders were our 4th graders, and we were able to help teach them different birds in their community and how to identify them through hands-on learning and bird watching. And then our 7th grade program was the Guardians of the Great Lakes, where we were discussing Wisconsin's largest natural resource, Lake Michigan. Part of this class, we were talking about different conservation issues affecting the lake, like pollution. And then they also, during the class, were able to participate in a beach cleanup. And then our 9th graders became super scientists when they got to learn what it takes to be a zoologist conducting their own research. And then in their 2nd class, they were able to come to the zoo and conduct their own experiment. The AmeriCorps members, we were also able to assist on animal care routines, and we assisted with the training of our animal ambassadors.
And were you teaching all 5 of the programs, just 1 or 2 of them in particular?
Most of us went between all of the different routines. I typically taught the 9th graders and the kindergartners, but I also loved teaching the 4th graders and the 3rd graders. We all got to do a little bit of everything. Unfortunately, we had less 4th grade and 7th grade programs because we were doing them in the fall and the spring. And unfortunately, service got caught during the spring due to the pandemic happening, and so we weren't able to do quite as many of those programs as we were with the 9th graders and the kindergartners.
And then what were you doing when you were going into the kindergarten classes?
So we were in there 2 different days. On our first day, we went through our presentation and we taught the different types of animals. And through that, we talked about mammals, reptiles, amphibians, invertebrates, all of those different classifications. And within that, we would give them the information about the classification, and then we would do a craft about the animal. Typically, something like with our mammal program, we had them color a mammal and create yarn for the fur, because a big part of being a mammal is having hair or fur. And we would do different crafts like that. For our reptiles, we had bubble wrap, and they would color on the bubble wrap and put it down on the piece of paper, and it would create scales, another key part of being a reptile. And then we would also be doing a live animal presentation about that classification as well. So we'd bring in cockroaches, or we'd bring in some snakes, we'd bring in a rabbit to help kind of concretely show this is what it means to be a mammal, this is a really important part of being a mammal, and then this is a mammal. And then in the 2nd day, we would come back in and we would play kind of a game similar to Candyland, where all of the students would be a different animal, and we would be talking about the different characteristics of each animal, and they would move forward in their spots if they had that characteristic. And by the end, everyone got through, and we all talked about how we were all part of the animal kingdom, and we would typically read some stories with them and then end our time with them after that.
And I know that since this was the first year for the Racine Zoo, it was an AmeriCorps program, they wanted to make some adjustments during the year. So can you tell us how you helped rewrite the curriculum during the year to make it better for the students?
Yes, so about halfway through, we realized maybe our wording wasn't as good, and especially with our kindergarten classes, teaching the differences between animals is a complicated thing for college students to go through, let alone trying to explain the word invertebrate to 5-year-olds. So trying to rewrite these programs and be able to teach these more difficult concepts to 5-year-olds, it took a lot of time and effort and a lot of brainstorming. And we spent a lot of time back at the zoo trying to figure out different ways for the children to be able to best receive the information just as well as we could give it.
And I know an aspect of that curriculum adjustment was when you noticed an issue that the super scientist students were having. So you can tell us a little bit about that issue.
So we went over a lot of different research that the zoo was doing during our super scientist program, and they were having a lot of trouble remembering and kind of understanding what the point of the research was, because I mean, these are ninth graders, and it is the differences between ninth graders and kindergartners are immediate. Kindergartners are excited no matter what, but with the ninth graders, we kind of have to work with them to get them to see that there's a point in being excited, because a lot of them have a lot of things going on. And so we were able to finally rewrite our program, and we were able to bring an animal in with the ninth graders as well. And I mean, at any age group, people become more receptive with hands-on experiences, and being able to have more hands-on experiences during our first class and not just our second and third class with the high schoolers ended up really helping keeping them motivated in that first class too.
And Amelia, can you tell us what you did as part of the animal care aspect of your service?
So that was super cool. I love being able to work with animals, and we got to help on different keepers with all the routines. At Racine, we have 5 different routines. We have a primate routine, a carnivore routine, a large exotic hoofstock like our giraffes and our rhinos and our zebras. And then they also had the educational animal routine and birds and other small animals that don't quite fit into the other routines. And we were able to assist with cleaning and helping with diet and enrichment for these animals alongside the keepers at the zoo.
And I know there's an animal training portion to your animal care. Could you tell us more about the animal training section and then how that impacted the other service the Racine Zoo AmeriCorps program is doing?
So we were able to assist. We had an animal trainer as part of our AmeriCorps staff to help us with our live animal presentations. And part of that, we were also able to help with positive reinforcement training of our animals that we were bringing out. And positive reinforcement training is something that a lot of zoos are starting to implement to both help with live programs, but also medical tests that we have to run with the animals. And we create this, instead of having something bad happen if an animal doesn't want it to happen, we just don't do anything. And we reinforce anything that we would like to happen with food and other positive things that the animal usually enjoys. And so it was really cool being able to work. We had a woodchuck. We also had a striped skunk that we were helping work on target training. And just working with the different educational animals in general was really interesting.
And then Amelia, why did you decide to serve with AmeriCorps originally? And then what made you want to serve with the Racine Zoo AmeriCorps program?
So environmental education programs have contributed to who I am today. While I was a child, there was a local nature preserve near our school, and we went there many times through elementary school, and I was involved in a lot of environmental things as a child, and I knew that I would be involved with the environment and with wildlife as I got older. I continued to go to environmental camps through the years, but it wasn't until college that I realized that I wanted to connect my interest in the environment with serving in the community. I got to do an internship with Helping Rhinos USA, and that was my first time creating programs about conservation for different age groups in California. And then once I graduated, I continued to work with animals, but that connection with the community, I was missing a lot. And it's my belief that with the access to environmental science-based experiences, that our youth will be able to both understand and be motivated to continue conservation programming on a local and global scale. And so when I saw the chance to be able to help a community and teach conservation at the same time, I moved halfway across the country to be able to do it.
And then Amelia, can you share with us some of your favorite memories or some highlights of your service experience with the Racine Zoo?
There was one time with our fourth grade class with the birding, we were out bird watching, and birds are a passion of mine. And we were with this group, and this big flock of gulls flew over us. And this was one of our first classes out there with the kids, and they were all able to immediately identify that these gulls were ring-billed gulls, and they just were excited. They were screaming. They were so happy to see ring-billed gulls, which are gulls that most of us have seen many, many times through our life. And most adults will see a common bird like that and kind of just move on with their day. But these kids being able to identify and specifically identify a species of bird and how many there were, they were so excited. And it was just really great to see a passion for birds in such a young group already. And then there was another, every time we were able to bring ambassador animals into our kindergarten and our third grade classes, it was a highlight. Watching the students' faces change with animals that they were scared of, and then realize that they're not so scary now that they were up close, and seeing that snakes aren't slimy or that the hedgehog spines feel like sandpaper. It was just highlights of my day every single day. And then I also had the opportunity to help present at a GYMS conference, which is a Girls Empowered by Math and Science conference. I attended a program like that when I was in middle school, and being able to give back to another group of young women whose interest was in math and science was a really great experience, especially being able to talk about wildlife conservation, because it can be hard to find out how to create a career within that field, because there's not as many resources for young girls in that time.
That's great. And Amelia, you told us a story about the impact it had on the students when they could recognize the goals. So what do you think are some of the biggest impacts you saw from your service as a whole?
So during our program, we were actually able to reach over 3,000 students. And just from our pre and post assessments, we were able to tell that 70% of them immediately gained new knowledge in these conservation issues. And that was just what was written on paper. And students can always have trouble writing different things. And so the fact that we were able to have a 70% improvement just in 3 classes or sometimes 2 was super cool. And this is a program that we're helping to continue doing over years and years, and see these differences, especially as these kindergartners. Hopefully that once they get to 3rd grade, we'll have the programs for them going through the 3rd grade. And then when they get to the 4th grade program, and see these pre-assessments be even higher through the years. But this was our first year, and just with that 70% off the bat, we were really excited about that. But then on top of that, there was one student in particular that was extremely frightened by Madagascar hissing cockroaches. And we go into these schools, and we'll even interact with the adults, and they'll be like, what animals do you have? What animals do you have? And we'll say, we'll have a cockroach. Instant disgust, total freak out, typically. And this is what happened with this child. But we kept talking about the animal, and by the end of the program, he came up to us and said, oh, could I try to touch him again? I'd really like to. And he did, and he got to look at them. Her name was Georgia, her right in the face, and just exclaimed, this is the cutest bug I ever saw, and then just wouldn't stop talking about it. The next time we came in, he was asking about Georgia, how is she doing? And just being able to see the kids change in that, even the littlest animals that we have some disgust and bad memories over, seeing that they're not our enemy, and that these little guys are still just as important to save as our pandas, was just amazing to see. And then we also, like I mentioned before, our 7th grade program helped with the beach cleanup, and we had over 500 students helping clean up the different beaches right along Racine's town. And that a lot of these students, this was the first time they've even been able to be at the lake, even if they only lived 5 minutes away. And they enjoyed being at the lake and participating in the cleanup. We had one class that ended up filling 3 whole big gallon trash bags of trash just within about a half an hour.
That's fantastic. And then Amelia, how do you think your AmeriCorps service with the Racine Zoo is going to influence you going forward?
Actually is a huge influence for me going forward, because I'm taking a lot of bits and pieces about what I've really enjoyed doing over the past year and what I haven't, to help me implement my plans coming forward. And working with the community and working with the education programs have really shown me that I do want to continue going down that path. And I would really like to help create or work with outdoor schools to help continue inner city kids, or just mostly students that are unable to get close to the environment in the same way as someone like me. I grew up in a really rural town. My backyard was the woods. I would run outside and I'd go into the woods and I couldn't hear a car. And just trying to help create experiences like this for kids that maybe don't have as much access to the outdoors that live in the cities. And without this, I don't know if I would have chosen to go quite down this path, but it's something that's really important to me now.
That's wonderful. And Amelia, thank you so much for talking with us and sharing the story about your service.
Thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation.
And congratulations again. We really appreciate the service you did and the difference you made with the Racing to AmeriCorps program this year. As I know they've expressed what a huge role you had helping to revise their curriculum as an example for the other members during their first year.
Thank you. I mean, I enjoyed it so much, and it was going to be a huge part of my life the rest of my life. I'm so glad I was able to do it.